Ever since the whole cleansing scene, I mean, it's been pretty clear, like, Shadow's House has some pretty twisted imagery at certain points in times anyway. Yes, at face value, a lot of what we see can be pretty neutral, pretty cool, calm, and collected, but still, every time a moment pops up, it's just, man, it's not that it's like trying to surpass the last shocking moment, but it's just a reminder of how messed up the Shadows family truly is. And for an episode where the characters get a pretty shocking revelation, they kind of get the confirmation that becoming an adult, which already was a pretty questionable thing to begin with for them, because Lord Grandfather, all these secrets, doesn't seem like the most trustworthy of fellows. You never really see the people who, once they become an adult, you focus on the children's world, that's where you are, that's where you'll either progress or die in, and then to get that shattering realization that, oh, you know, we have this bond between master and servant, we want to break the shackles, break the chains, and now we have characters like Kate and, you know, the others being like, wait, if so, in order for me to become an adult, which it's not even really a choice. If you get the invitation, you go. As seen by the whole Mary Rose, Rosemary situation. If it wasn't for those phantom attacks, she would have been an adult long ago. And those who seemingly don't accept the invitation get the cocoon of death, whatever the hell that is. It apparently smelled rancid. And to see them just like that, it's such a brilliant episode, because most of what they did in this episode is already information we knew of or suspected. The whole idea of what Master Robe's true end goal was. Well, yes, it's been a big question, a big topic of debate. The general consensus was it was something to do with not liking probably Lord Grandfather, or at least the rules of the Shadows House. Like, that was a pretty universally agreed opinion. It was just a big, like, what was her true end goal with that? Seemingly, it's escape. Like, that's basically how it is presented, and escape seems unlikely. Trying to find those like-minded individuals, and then ultimately your time runs out, and what can you do other than take some pretty drastic measures in order to get the job done? The thing that I actually found a little surprising, but I guess in hindsight it makes a lot of sense given, I guess, Rosemary's interactions previously, was that I thought it was a little more hostile, a little less friendly, but to see her just totally in sync with her master, that was an interesting turn of events to say the least. But to just see these characters, because over, not last week, but over prior episodes, the whole idea of the human living dolls are growing closer, and the shadows are growing closer. But there was almost a disconnect between master and servant, even the characters who are trying to work together, like Kate and Emilico. It felt like there's been a bit more distance, and last week came around and it felt like they kind of came back together. But after this episode, with this information really hot in their minds, you know, even if you trust the person next to you, even if Sean and John have total confidence in one another, even if Emilico and Kate have total confidence, there's now that wedge issue. There's now that, what would they do if they got the invitation? Would they, you know, give up and get killed, or would they fight for me? Of course, they would say they would fight, but now that fear is going to be lingering in their minds. And I think in any other circumstance, this whole Mary Rose, Rosemary situation, if they would have discovered each other far sooner than obviously the note was given, it could have been turned out so much differently. Like, this is the last night, almost like the last hurrah, and apparently the only escape is through Lord Grandfather's wing, and I mean, if you get your invitation to be an adult, I guess that's your one shot, but you know it ain't gonna work out. So to have an episode like this where it just feels like all the information, all those little building blocks that have been set in motion ever since the beginning, or near the beginning of season 1, you know, the whole idea of, like, the door and how we remember it was, like, booby-trapped, right? And we saw what she did with her little soot monsters, used them as basically a sacrifice so she could get to the door before it could reload and do anything. Apparently, it's just on the side of a cliff. There's basically no escape other than the one place that is even more prison-like than where they currently are. So, how do you progress through this? Honestly, have no damn idea. With what they revealed, with what they're setting up, it seems like Emilico, Kate, those characters, unless they get the invitation to become an adult and then somehow push back without being basically concerned that they might be a traitor, which they already are, I guess they had good behavior, then they get their invitation, they might be able to sneak around, maybe escape, don't know. But it definitely makes it feel more bleak than ever before, because even though I wasn't actively considering the door, it's a nice reminder, but as we see and as it's called, it's just to save face. It's something to make the illusion of escape there. If you attempt it, you probably get skewered like a kebab, but if you manage to get through there, it's nothing. And just the whole idea that anyone who has those traitorous thoughts they might get the idea that someday we'll go through that door, just not yet because we don't want to get killed. It gives them that illusion that they should play nice for now because someday they'll run through those front doors, and the front doors go nowhere. Unless you had some massive ability that could let you, levitate or something, like, you're kind of shit out of luck. And that's what I really like about it, and I really like the whole idea of, like, exploring the powers, because everyone has, like, a different ability with how they manipulate soot. And based on what we were seeing, she could control, small quantities and, control the little creatures. But to see how she used both Kate's kind of her ability's pretty amazing. And the fact that she was able to use that to make more, and then John and just everything, like the fact that he has the massive punch, the almost Dragon Ball level of energy he's going, and that just creates literally attack on Phantom, and just to see that. It's a little goofy looking at face value, but we know the devastation these things cause, and Phantoms and little sprites that are running around, they're nothing that physically look creepy, but imagine yourself being swarmed like they're just rats. That would be pretty horrifying put in their position. And honestly, it's just an episode of reveals. It feels like an episode of payoff, stuff that has been built up, been in our minds, and just, to see the characters get that shattering realization, that's the thing that really sells me, is seeing how fearful and what this knowledge now does to their mentality. It doesn't look good for Mary Rose and Rosemary. It really doesn't, with the whole Edward stuff and, them almost powering up to kind of fight this one man here as they turn into their shadow forms until eventually backing off. But it seems like gonna be impossible for both Kate and Emilico to progress deeper into this story without having even more targets on their back. They already had it at the end of season 1, but it feels more likely now, given that they're very suspecting of that the reason there's so many troublemakers now in the children's ward, especially when it comes to Kate, is probably because of Mary Rose / Rosemary, so everything is not turning up Emilico or Kate right now, but it was a fantastic episode, one of the best of season 2, hands down. With only a few more episodes to go of season 2, it's going to be interesting to see how they decide to wrap this arc up. I have heard that based on where the manga leaves off with this arc, and based on current anime pacing, it should have a good stopping point, that rather than needing to create something to let the anime stop in a satisfying way, I guess this arc should end in a way that feels conclusive for a season, just obviously not as a story because it's based on an ongoing source material, but I have a feeling that with whatever they decide to pull with the final stretch here, it's probably going to leave me more eager to see a season 3 than even season 1 did. And if you've been watching the videos long enough, you know how much I've loved Shadows House ever since its debut episode. Great directing, some great reactions, once again, for having half the characters with no faces. The way they use the camera in elegant ways, them dramatically running, to just some of the shifts in perspective, really added a great emotional touch to a show that could easily be glossed over for those finer details, but leave it to Cloverworks to hit it out of the park when it comes to the Shadows House directing. But thoughts, feelings, and definitely theories down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new around here. Till next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.